as members of council be enlightened, and may we all be strengthened in our awareness of our duties and responsibilities. May we be granted the wisdom, knowledge, will, and understanding to preserve the good fortune of the town for the benefit of all and to make good laws and wise decisions. Thank you all for attending.
Excuse me, Deputy Mayor. We're going to get Mayor LaRue on the line. If you want to just hold for a moment.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor LaRue. Okay. All right, so I have called the meeting to order. We have done our welcome and council commitment. We now have approval of our agenda, moved by Councillor Vadabancourt, seconded by Councillor Cummings, that the agenda of the regular council meeting of March 13th, 2019 be approved as presented. All those in favor? Carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest, either now or at the time the item is brought forward. And tonight we are having a public meeting in reference to a zoning bylaw amendment for 45 Edward Street. So as this is a public meeting under the Planning Act to consider an application to amend the town's council zoning bylaw. The purpose of this public meeting is not to engage in a debate regarding the merits of the application, nor is it intended to be a question and answer session. It is to provide an opportunity for the public to make comments and for council members to ask clarifying questions. This, to the public, this is your opportunity to speak in support or in opposition of this application based on planning merits, and we encourage you to do so. In accordance with the Planning Act, if a person does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make a written submission before the bylaw is passed or an approval given, you may not be entitled to appeal the decision of the local planning appeal tribunal, and you may not be added as a party to a hearing on an appeal to the LPAT unless, in the opinion of the LPAT, there are reasonable grounds to do so. And I would now ask our planning director, Ms. Betty, to give us a rundown of this application.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I can confirm that notice of tonight's public meeting was given on February 20th to ratepayers and agencies within 120 meters of the subject property. The notice was also posted on the town's website and a notice sign installed on the property in accordance with the town's policies. I can confirm to date notice received, and you will have had that in your package. We did receive notice from Canada, or response from Canada Post and Enbridge Gas, as well as internal comments from the building and the fire department. There were no comments or concerns with respect to the application. The agent on behalf of the applicant is here, Mr. Jamie Robinson of MHBC, so I'll let him describe the proposal in more detail.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of council. My name is Jamie Robinson, and I'm a partner with MHBC Planning in Barrie, and we were retained by the Georgian Bay Cancer Support Centre to assist them with the submission and review of a zoning bylaw amendment application for their site. Just like to point out a few people that are here from the Cancer Support Center in the audience and support tonight. We've got Suzanne Betty here. We've got Sandra Baldwin, Sandy Cornell, and Dr. Larry Arnold as well from the Cancer Support Center. And they're all here in support of the application, but I am speaking on behalf of those folks tonight. Just see if we can get this. Probably best to use that. There you go. What I'm going to do is just provide a brief overview of the proposal, what the amendment pertains to, and then there's an opportunity following that to be turned over to the chair, and then there'll be an opportunity for public comments to be provided. So, well, this site is on Edward Street, and it's at the corner, the intersection of Edward Street and Lucy Street, the unopened road allowance in that area. There's about an acre of land that's proposed to be conveyed to the Cancer Support Center. And what this proposal is to undertake is a rezoning application. It's proposed to be maintained in a residential 1 zone, but add a site-specific exception that would allow for the Cancer Support Center to exist on the property. The reason we really need the zoning amendment also is the zoning bylaw never contemplated the use of a Cancer Support Center. So that's really the need, that no matter where it would be located in the town, a zoning bylaw amendment would be necessary to establish that use. Just in terms of the Cancer Support Center, and this was an enlightening experience for me as well to understand the sort of services that they provide in the area, but it's as the name sounds, it's a support center for people with cancer, and there's daily activities that occur at that center. They vary from yoga to reflexology. There's some card making and some various like wreath making activities that might occur based on the time of year. But it's an opportunity and provides a location for individuals with cancer to come and share their experiences with other individuals undergoing the similar life issues, as well as to receive some assistance as well. So it's really an institutional use that provides those opportunities for residents. Just in terms of the permitted uses, the residential zoning in the municipality the R1 zone does provide a number of institutional type uses. We think from a land use perspective, from a scale and an impact perspective, that the proposed use is very similar in nature to some of these other uses that exist that are currently permitted as of right in the zoning bylaw. Specifically, what we're looking at doing with respect to the proposed amendment is to establish 3 site-specific exceptions in addition to the use to facilitate the building, and I'll get into those in a moment. So just in terms of the 3 site-specific exceptions that are proposed, I'll start on the upper left-hand corner. What this is a conceptual site plan for the proposed development. What the building is, it's proposed to be a royal home that would be used on this site. The benefit to that is it can be installed fairly quickly. The construction doesn't happen on the site. The construction, for the most part, happens off-site, and it gets transported to the site. So there's less impact from a timing perspective on the neighboring community. But in terms of the amendments that are proposed along the unopened Lucy Street right-of-way, is a proposed reduction in the minimum required setback for parking spaces. Your zoning bylaw requires a 7.5 meter setback for a parking space from an exterior side lot line, and that's one of the proposed amendments to the bylaw. Another proposed amendment relates to the parking on the front yard. Again, your bylaw requires a 7.5 meter setback for parking, and that's the arrow on the bottom left-hand corner. What's proposed there is a 5.7 meter setback to the parking space. We feel that's an appropriate setback. It allows for some landscaping to exist between the right-of-way for Edward Street and the proposed parking. The final setback relates to the setback on the east side of the building, so adjacent to the soccer field. And this proposed reduction in the interior side yard setback from 4.5 meters to 1.5 meters. Given the adjacent land use is for recreation purposes and open space, we don't believe that there's any impact on the neighboring property, which is town-owned lands, and that reduction to a 1.5 meter setback would be appropriate from a planning perspective. I'm not going to get into details, but just wanted to let council and the public know that we have reviewed the application from the perspective of the various applicable policy documents, being the provincial policy statement, the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, as well as the county official plan and the township official plan. and the proposed use is consistent with the PPS and does conform to the various policy documents. In terms of supporting studies, with respect to the application, there was a planning justification report that we prepared, and as well as there was a traffic impact letter that was prepared by Burnside to consider the traffic impact of the proposed use. And from a traffic perspective, the proposed use is an appropriate location and generates a very minimal amount of traffic throughout the day. Just in terms of the process to date, we submitted an application, it was deemed complete, and that's why the public meeting was scheduled. We did host an open house meeting for the community in which a hand delivery of notices was provided to neighboring property owners. That meeting was held last Monday. We had 3 individuals come out. It was really for them they were looking for information on what was being proposed, and I think the consensus from the individuals that attended the meeting was generally what the comments we received was that they were generally in support of the proposed application. They were in support of the proposed use. They recognized the benefit it provides to the community and the area. And they recognize that as opposed to, for example, a medium density development on this site, that the impact could be far less with the proposed use as what could potentially occur on the site under other circumstances. And also that the daily operations of the site are focused around the daytime when many people are at work, and that it's not a very operational, or there's not a busy site during the evening hours when most people are enjoying their residential properties. So with respect to that, there has been a staff report prepared as well. I see on the agenda, there's a possibility that it could be considered for approval tonight. Subject to approval from council, there is a 20-day appeal period as well, following the notice of decision being provided. So that provides a bit of an overview of the application, but I'll turn it back over to the chair. Thank you.
It's now an opportunity for those in attendance, those that are in support or oppose the application, to make a comment. I would ask that if you come forward to make a comment, please give your name. Okay, yes.
My name is Shelley Brooks, and I live on the dead end leading on Lucy Street. I do have a couple of concerns. One is I'm not sure it's something I want to look at. It is a residential area, and I really don't understand why that was the first pick. And it seems to be that that is the first pick the town has given. I could be wrong, but right now there is no road going through. In the future, when that road goes through, and I've lived there 30 years, and I've been told no less than 6 times that that road's going through next year, next year, next year. And right now, the only road that goes right through without a stop is up by the schools, and cars avoid that. So if that road goes through and you've got the traffic to St. Anne's, you've got the high school's gone now, but hopefully somebody takes that over. You've got the traffic to Georgian Manor, and then if you add the traffic to that, I am concerned with the amount of children that are out walking. First concern. Second concern is I don't really see them making the improvements that needed to be on that road year after year after year. I have called the town office multiple times about getting things done. The water there is unbelievable. Now, I realize they did the drilling and all the plans, but I'm concerned about where the water's going to go, because that drains into the soccer field through there. So, and that soccer field, I'm telling you, in the spring is full. So where that's all going to go, I don't know. Storm drains. I also feel that it was very poorly handled, because the first thing I read about this was in the newspaper. Why there couldn't have been a little bit of information sent out to the people in the area would have been really nice. To go in and read in the paper like it's a done deal is saying that, you know what, you live there, but you're not important, because we're doing it anyways. That's how I feel, Nita. And that's about it.
Thank you for your comments, Shelley. Is there anyone else that would wish to make comment? Seeing none, it is an opportunity for council members to ask for clarification. Oh,
I live right on the corner of Jeffrey Lucy. I'm Greg Bush. And the only question I have is eventually Lucy Street being put through to Edward? Whether the town's paying for it, there's been rumors that the gentleman that owns the sixplex on Edward is going to pay for it and develop the property on the other side of Lucy where the proposed cancer drop-in center is going.
thank you for your question. I would ask Brian Murray, who is our Director of
Yes.
Transportation. Yes, Brian, would you like to speak to that, please?
Through the deputy mayor, yes, the extension of, or the reconstruction and extension of Lucy Street is within our 10-year capital plan. So, yes, we do have plans to extend it.
But I've been told that for 30 years.
Good point. Yeah.
Okay, please. We need to keep decorum.
You can come up.
Great.
You can share the podium.
Okay, and the draining issue, Brian, I'm sure that will be addressed when we,
Yes, as of right now, it's an open field and unopened right of way. So the drainage issues, there will be a proper storm sewer constructed as part of the construction project to handle any surface drainage on Lucy Street. So yes, yep.
and the soccer pitch, or it is a retention pond, is it not? It was made for
That's-
that in the beginning.
That's correct.
it
It serves as a stormwater management pond. It's a dry
Yes.
pond, so
Yes.
it does function as a stormwater retention facility. So it is designed to hold water.
Thank you.
And it does well because, like Shelley wasn't exaggerating, there's a good foot of water in there in the spring. There's that big storm drainage in the one corner.
Correct.
The other question is, why will Lucy Street being put through because of the cancer drop-in center?
No, it's actually part of our infrastructure and development,
Right.
future development for the lands on either side of Lucy Street. So we do have plans to reconstruct the entire length of Lucy Street and extend Lucy Street to Edward Street.
And is there a simple answer to why is that necessary to spend those funds to do that? Is there like a traffic thing or
To
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 do
ba-
it, to put it through? Is there a
to
reason?
extend Lucy Street?
Mhm.
To basically encourage or initiate development on those vacant lots to increase development within the town.
The vacant lots between Shelley's property and the sixplex.
On both sides of Lucy Street, yes.
Oh, there won't be much left after the drop-in centers there.
Yes, there will on the other side.
Okay, we have to keep on track, sir.
Sorry, okay, yeah, no
Okay.
worries. But is there, one more question, one more. Is there a further meeting when it comes to actual planning, when we can see actual engineering drawings of the cancer drop-in center and all that kind of stuff?
Andrea, could you answer that question, please?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So the development is subject to a site plan approval process through the municipality. Site plan approval is not a public process per se, in that the public does not have an opportunity to comment or participate in a discussion and forum like tonight. However, that information is publicly available. You can, when they come in and have an approved set of drawings, you can review the plans and see what's being proposed. But that site plan development is something that is an agreement entered into by the municipality and the developer of the site.
And there will be another meeting or a discussion about when the road actually is going to be done through?
Oh, yes, that would be, as Brian said, it's part of our 10-year capital project,
Right.
so it will
So
have
when it gets close,
discussion.
there'll be another,
Well,
Okay.
certainly the public will be aware.
okay.
Okay? Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing none, it is an opportunity for council to ask for questions of clarification. And if there's no question, Andrea, could you explain what will happen? I know it is on our agenda a little later, but could you give some information, please?
Yes, thank you, certainly, Madam Chair. So there is a further motion on Council's agenda in that I'm seeking direction to report back to Council with a recommendation on the zoning request, as well as responding to any of these concerns that we did hear tonight from the public. And so that will be coming on the March 27th Council agenda. And from there, Council has a decision to make as to whether what to do with the application for rezoning. Further, as Jamie had alluded to in his presentation, there is an appeal period for those who did submit their names. So they will be getting notice of Council's decision after that is made by Council, and we'll have that 20-day appeal period on whether to make a decision on a possible appeal to the LPAT. And as previously indicated, there will be future Council consideration of the site plan development for the property as well. I don't have a set date for those, however.
Thank you for that information. Very good. So that concludes our public meeting. You're very welcome. Yes, sorry, Madam Clerk.
No apologies necessary. Just a reminder, as we do have Mayor LaRue on the line electronically, when you proceed in the agenda, both for council and for committee of the whole, when we do have a vote, if we could ask for the verbal yes or no from Mayor LaRue, just because you won't be able to see him either put up his hand or not. And it's easy to forget about him because he's on the phone here. So just a reminder for everyone.
Thank you very much. We'll try not to forget. You can put your hand up every now and then. Oh, okay, Doug. All right, so we will move along with our agenda. Our number 6 is deputations and presentations, of which we have none. Our next order of business is approval of minutes. 7A, moved by Councillor Cummings, seconded by Councillor Vatabancourt, that the following minutes of council meetings be confirmed and adopted as circulated. Regular Council, February 13th, 2019. Committee of the Whole, February 13th, 2019. Special Council, February 13th, 2019. And Special Committee of the Whole, February 20th, 2019. Are there any issues, councillors? Any questions? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor? Councillor LaRue? Mayor LaRue? Mayor LaRue? Oh, yeah. Mayor LaRue, sorry for that slip. Okay. Whoops. Matters for consideration. We have the zoning bylaw amendment for 45 Edward Street, that this report be received for discussion and that staff be directed to prepare a report for the next Committee of the Whole meeting to address any comments reviewed at the public meeting. Andrea certainly has given us a critique of what is going to happen in the future. So are there any questions members of council may have on this particular issue? This was moved by Councillor Clue, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dubo, that this report be received for discussion and that staff be directed to prepare a report for the next Committee of the Whole meeting to address any comments received at the public meeting. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. B is Advisory Committee and Board appointees. Moved by Councillor Vatabancourt, seconded by Councillor Cummings, that Council of the Town of Penetanguishene ratify the Mayor's public appointment to following Town Advisory Committees. Committee of Adjustment, Larry Cascanet. Museum and Heritage Committee, Councillor Jessica Clue. Transit Committee, Councillor Debbie Levy and James Hutchison. Any comments on this particular issue, Council? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Oh, Mayor LaRue. Thank you. Okay. 8C. Moved by Councillor Cummings, seconded by Councillor Vatabancourt, that staff report regarding the salary policy be received, and that the current salary policy, which is an appendix of bylaw 200295, Section 4 of the Personnel Policy Manual be repealed and stand alone as corporate policy number FCSHR 8008-2019. And further, that the amended salary policy be adopted with the wording changes to separate the market review timelines and the cost of living adjustment COLA, with the annual adjustments being an average of the percentage of the two collective agreements. Councillor Cummings, did you want to speak to this?
I will go to the chair, Councillor
Okay.
Badamancourt.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I think the recommendation basically speaks to what the report is about. In the existing policy, there was a reference to the cost of living adjustment, and due to the circumstances with respect to our staffing situation and having two collective agreements, the wording is being recommended that the wording be amended so that it is the average of the two cost of living adjustments from the two collective agreements. So just a wording change in the salary policy. Thank you.
Are there any questions, members of council? Mayor LaRue, do you have any questions? Thank you. I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. We will go to presentations and consideration of reports. Committee of the Whole. Moved by Councillor LaRose, seconded by Councillor Sanama, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole report related to Recreation and Community Services section be approved. All those in favor? Carried. Yes. Oh, Mayor LaRue? Thank you. Our 9A again, moved by Councillor Mayette, seconded by Councillor Levy, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole report related to the Transportation Environment Services section be approved. If there are no questions, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Oh, Mayor LaRue? Thank you. Our next one is moved by Councillor Vadabancourt, seconded by Councillor Cummings, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole report related to Finance and Corporate Services section be approved. If there are no...
Go ahead, Mayor LaRue.
Okay, Madam Chair, I would like to pull under Finance Corporate Services under the consent agenda A, number I, which is dealing with the guest house.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Chair of Finance, do you have that in front of you?
Madam Deputy Mayor, I have the motion from the coordinated committee section. That's all I have.
Okay. Mayor LaRue, I guess we would ask you to speak to it since you pulled it.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As was pointed out before, but one of the last meetings that I had pulled it, and I don't feel that we have really dealt with this matter as far as the guest house. We know that they had approached us to a proposal on their loan repayment. Now, I do understand that all of the three other municipalities have forgiven the loan. So I'm proposing that we either forgive the loan as the other three municipalities have, or that we agree to their proposal of 1 year no payment with a 5 years repayment at no interest, or that we send it back to staff for a recommendation. But I don't believe we can just leave it hanging in the air.
Thank you for your comments. Council, would someone like to speak to that? Do we want to send it back to staff for a report, or are we prepared to deal with this issue this evening? Yes, Councillor Levy?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing the mayor. Did he just make a motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Just procedurally, yes, Councillor Levy is correct. There needs to be a motion made in order for this discussion to happen. I understand that the mayor is looking, has sort of mentioned a few options, but just procedurally, it is something that we need to sort of move a motion, have the discussion, and vote.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, if you would like to make your recommendation by way of a motion, I would be delighted to second it.
Well, I think that we have to deal with it, and if we're not prepared to forgive a loan, as I stated, like the other 3 municipalities have, then I would move that we agree to their proposal of 1 year no payment and a 5 years repay at no interest.
So that's a motion?
Yes, it is, Councillor Levy.
Yes, Debbie, Councillor.
I would second that motion.
So just for clarification, Mayor LaRue, the motion would be that staff be directed to proceed with the terms proposed by the guest house shelter
That's correct.
in the letter dated January 28th, 2019.
Yes.
And so we have a seconder, Councillor Levy.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk, and thank you, Mayor LaRue. If there's discussion, yes, Councillor LaRose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to be sure then, so what we're going to do is we're going to let everything sit as is for 1 year, and then they start their repayment schedule on a 5-year term interest-free, if that's what the motion reads?
I believe that's how. Okay.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so just to be clear, essentially requesting no payment until January of 2020, and then beginning January of 2020, extending the $25,000 loan over a 5-year period. Pending direction from council, obviously staff would seek to make an amendment to the loan agreement, but that from an administrative perspective could be done back end, and I'm not trying to presuppose council's decision.
Thank you for that clarification. Are there further comments? If not, I will call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion that was put forward? Carried. Councillor LaRue? Yes.
In favor.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to moved by Councillor Vatabancourt, seconded by Councillor Cummings. Oh, we just did that, didn't we? And we pulled, but I don't think I called for the vote. Did I call for the vote? No, I did not. So I will now call for the vote for the other items in the Finance and Corporate Services section. All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Clue, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dubo, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole report related to Planning and Development Service section be approved. There are no issues. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. 10.A, moved by Councillor Cummings, seconded by Councillor Vatabancourt, that the recommendations contained within the Special Committee of the Whole report related to Finance and Corporate Services section be approved.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Members of council will recall that this was our last budget meeting, and the recommendations coming forward from that meeting are recommending that the budget, the 2019 operating and capital budget and the 2020 capital budgets be approved. And there's a motion there as well with respect to the facade improvement program. So with your indulgence, Madam Deputy Mayor, after council's finished dealing with this report, I'd like to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you. I will call for the vote on this item. Excuse me, are there questions or concerns? Yes, Councillor LaRose.
Just one, thank you, Madam Chair. I won't be supporting it. I think staff has done a great job in getting it ready. The two items that I brought up last time in we won't bother going into detail with all of them, but with that being unresolved, it's unfortunate, but I will not be able to support it.
Thank you, Councillor LaRose. Are there other comments? Yes, Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be voting against it too. Like, there's one item on there that I still have a hard time with it, and I expressed my feeling about it. So, but the staff did a great job. Thank you very much. It's just, like I say, the one item that I still doesn't sit well with me, so I'll be voting against it.
Thank you for your comments. Further comments by members? Seeing none, I will call for the vote on this issue. All those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Mayor LaRue? Thank you. Councillor Vatabancourt, if you now would like to make your remarks.
Thank you. So I appreciate the comments around the table, and I appreciate Council's support for the town's 2019 operating and capital budget and the 2020 capital budget. I want to thank Council for their support and thank staff for their hard work in preparing the budget. Council's objective was to provide a budget that maintained the service levels that our residents enjoy and to focus on our core infrastructure renewal and replacement. This was done through Council's review and direction, public input through the town's online budget survey, and public consultation and staff recommendations. The increased investment in our core infrastructure of roads, water, and wastewater is evident by the 2019 and 2020 capital budgets totaling almost $4.6 million. Successful grant applications and subsidies will offset this investment by almost $690,000, reducing the financial impact to our taxpayers, which of course is always a priority. Oftentimes, balancing these objectives can be a challenging process to complete. We have accomplished our goal and direction to staff to bring forward our 2019 budget with no more than a 2.25% tax rate increase, which is our calculated municipal price index net of estimated assessment growth. The town's 2019 budget results in a municipal levy of $10.6 million with a 1.4% municipal tax impact. This is below the rate of inflation. The town's tax-supported capital program for 2019 and 2020 is $1.15 million per year. The town's total capital program for 2019 is almost $3.7 million and $4 million for 2020. Our Ontario capital program includes an investment of $3.4 million into our Public Works division, $654,000 into our Water division, $505,000 into our Wastewater division, $644,000 into Fire and Emergency Services, and $2.3 million invested into recreation and community services for our library, arena, museum, wharf, curling club, parks, trails, and playgrounds. Some notable capital projects include the engineering and construction of Thompson Road West, County Road 93 multi-use trail, intersection as improvements at Robert Street West and Fuller Avenue, Fox Street sewage plant dechlorination system, completion of the McGuire Park tennis and pickleball courts, replacement of McGuire Park playground structure, concrete repairs at the town wharf, and Martin Valley Park engineering and design. Council has approved an operating budget that maintains our service levels and provides opportunities for service enhancements through our recent service delivery review. The town's tax-supported budget of 2019 is just over $10.6 million. In addition to operating and capital costs, this includes our policing costs of just over $1.6 million, $988,000 for fire and emergency services, and $755,000 for a continued commitment toward debt reduction. Included also is $310,000 for our preventive maintenance roads program, $504,000 for the library and other community organizations, $286,000 for our arena, $203,000 for recreation programming and events, and $161,000 for a museum, and $55,000 for our transit program. When taking into account the 2019 returned assessment roll and the new growth that the town has experienced, the budget results in an increase of 1.4% on the municipal portion of the tax bill, or about $13.64 per $100,000 of typical residential assessment. This is anticipated to be reduced further when the county and provincial education taxes become available in early April. In closing, I would like to sincerely thank council and especially staff for the significant time and effort that was spent in finalizing our 2019 budget. And respectfully request that, and thank council again for adopting the budget estimate, and ask for your support in adopting the bylaw 2019-18 being presented to us later this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Vatabancourt. I would imagine that your statement will be part of the record, so that if anyone wanted to further look at it, it will be available through our minutes process. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
It certainly wouldn't normally be, but if that's the request of council, we can have that information provided and included in the minutes.
I think it's important if people want to have a look at it. Sometimes you don't digest all the information, so have a chance to have a better look at it. So thank you again. I will echo thanks to staff as well, and I see our finance, Carrie, would like to say a few words.
Through you, Madam Chair, just to let everyone know that the FCS Chair's remarks on the 2019 budget will be actually published in the budget book that we'll be distributing hopefully next week.
Thank you very much for that. Very good. Thank you again to everyone. Okay, we will move on. 10.A, moved by Councillor Cummings, seconded by Councillor Vatabancourt, that the recommendations contained within the Special Committee of the Whole report related to finance and corporate service sections be approved. I think I did, that was moved and seconded. Thank you. 13A, moved by Councillor Vatabancourt, seconded by Councillor Cummings, that the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene introduce the following bylaws: 2019-14, 2019-15, 2019-16, 2019-17, 2019-18, 2019-19, and that the bylaws be read a first time and to be read a second and third time and carried. If there are no issues on any of those bylaws, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Mayor Leroux? Thank you. 13A. First off, we have question period from the media and public. Our media is not here this evening? 14, okay. Gosh, I'm rusty tonight, right? 15, announcements and inquiries. Do council members have any announcements or inquiries that they would like to bring forward? Seeing none, I will go to the Yes, Councillor Levy.
This is a county issue, but I still wanted to raise it. With our lane reduction from 80 to 60 on Highway 93, there is no large sign or any evidence to tell people if they're not paying. Of course, we should all be paying very close attention, but it's been changed, and whenever there is a change, a new stop sign, a new anything, there is very visible notice with a flashing light and bells and whistles. A lot of us were aware of it through social media posts. Some people were very late finding out about it when they were pulled over by the police. And I just think that whatever means we have available to us through the CAO or the deputy mayor or even the fire chief, I didn't mean even the fire chief, that's not what I meant, Paul. Whoever has any pull with the county to see if this could be rectified, better late than never.
Thank you for your comments. I think we've all noticed that in the last few days, but I will ask Brian if he could have anything to add to that.
Through to the deputy mayor, to Councillor Levy, I can definitely call my contacts at the county and inquire about the speed sign changes. I have noticed them as well, and I think it is just a matter of changing the regulatory signage that they've installed, the white and black, to a construction orange and black sign, because I believe That was what was intended, and I think it's just a mistake on the part of the contractor or a misunderstanding. So I'll clarify that with my contact at the county and have it addressed.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much, Madam Chair,
thank you.
and to Brian.
Something that just came to mind as well is in our newsletter that will go out in another month or so, that may be a spot for it. And also, I think, a little blurby about what's happening. A lot of people are unaware that there is a multi-use trail being installed along the highway, so just throw that out to see if something, you might think of putting something in our newsletter. Our confirmation bylaw, moved by Councillor Cummings and seconded by Councillor Vatabancourt, that the confirmation bylaw 2019-20 be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? Carried. And adjournment. We'll have a 5-minute break. Thank you. approval of our agenda, so I need a mover and a seconder. Yep. Moved by Councillor Sanama, seconded by Councillor LaRose, that the Committee of the Whole agenda for March 13, 2019 be approved as presented. Declaration of pecuniary interests, either now or at the time the item comes forward. We have no presentations or delegations at the moment. Council information package number 5. We have information from February 6th, February 20th, and March 6, 2019. Are there any items on any of those reports that anyone would like to pull at this moment? Yes, Councillor Vadabankur.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'm not proposing to pull any items, but I did have a question, and I did pose it to the clerk and the CAO from a resident, and I did get my response, but it had to do with responding to correspondence that the municipality receives. And the clerk advises me that the town does have a policy, and that staff are having a look at that policy because it is a few years old, and they'll be perhaps bringing forward a report dealing with how correspondence is responded to by the municipality. So I just wanted to mention that it's a work in progress, and we should...
It's a consent agenda, but I will hand it over to Councillor LaRose, Transportation and Environmental Services.
Sorry to interrupt. We just need a mover and a seconder for the council information package.
Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Levy, seconded by Councillor Mayott. Thank you. Councillor Mayott, did you have something that you wanted to bring forward?
No.
Okay. So I can move on to number 6, Transportation and Environmental Services. Councillor Mayott, thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Rose.
I was so in tune to having Councillor Rose always at Transportation.
It's what I find strange is I've been sitting here for many years and I'm still forgotten. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Before you move forward, I do need to have a vote on the council information package. All those in favor? Carried. Mayor LaRue? Thank you. Councillor Mayott, it's all yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have nothing under the consent agenda. Item 6B, matter for consideration, proposal amendment to the traffic parking bylaw 2012-23, RDS 2019-07. Recommended action that council or council. Basically, this is something that we've told staff to look at in conjunction with the MLEO about stop sign and yield signs. I don't know if you read your report, you looked at it, where they're going to be installed. If there's any questions or any concern, our manager's here, Brian. Do we have any questions or all in favor? Pass. Thank you. Referral for upcoming agenda and staff. The only thing we have is the Robert Thompson extension. Is there anything we want to add?
Ask Councillor LaRose to take over as chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 7A, we have under our consent agenda, the recommended action that the following consent agenda items have been given due consideration and be received for information. One is Recreation Program Municipal Subsidy Report, and it's just for our information, so if anybody has any problems. Seeing none, we'll look for a mover. Councillor Sanama, seconded by Councillor Vadabankur. All in favor? And that's passed. Matters for consideration, we have the Great Trail Spring Cleanup Grant. We are applying for a... Mayor LaRue has given up on us, so that's fine. We're down to the other part. He can wait. Staff is applying for a small grant for this, and we're just hoping that it goes through. So if there's any questions. Seeing none, I'll ask for a mover for that one. Councillor Sanama, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dubo. All in favor? And that is carried. Moving down to C, we have our referrals. We have the cycling strategy, the feasibility study, and the building assessment. He's back in. He didn't miss much. It was brought to our attention that the feasibility study says an expected due date of Q1 due to some items not being available for our staff to get from the appropriate places. That is going to be moved to Q2. So if nobody has a problem with that, it will be changed, ready for the next agenda. So if we have any other ones that we would like to add, speak now or go for that. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Mayette, seconded by Councillor Sanama. All in favor? We'll go question period from the media and public, and we see nothing. So, Madam Chair, it's back to you.
Thank you, Councillor LaRose. We will move on to Planning and Community Development Services, and I would ask Councillor Clue to raise these issues.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the agenda, under 8B, matters for consideration, we have appointments to the Zoning Bylaw Review Project Steering Committee. Recommended action that the following appointments be made to the Zoning Bylaw Review Project Steering Committee: Larry Cascanet and Mike DeCourcy. Is there a mover for this motion?
I'll move.
Seconder? Councillor Rose, moved by Deputy Mayor Dubo. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item C, referrals to upcoming agenda. That the Planning and Community Development Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. Any changes or discussion on this item? No? And we need a mover to keep this as is. Councillor Rose, seconder. Councillor Sanama, all in favor? Motion is carried. Question period from media and public. Elizabeth? All good? And I forgot the mayor. My apologies. Mayor LaRue? He's good. Okay, great. Turn it back to Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clue. We will now move to Finance and Corporate Services. Councillor Vadabonker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have 3 items on the consent agenda, and we have a motion that the following consent agenda items, having been given due consideration, be received for information. Historical analysis of grants received. Request from École Secondaire Le Caron, re the Whistler Santander Music Festival, and number 3, the post-2018 municipal election report. Does anybody want to see any of those, one of those items pulled? Madam Deputy Mayor?
I would like to pull the École Secondaire Le Caron request for financing and help with their music festival.
Thank you. Any other items? Okay, so I'll call for the vote on the remainder of the items, and then we'll discuss the École Secondaire Le Caron matter. So may I have a mover for the other 2 items? Councillor Rose, a seconder. Councillor Levy, so that the consent items be received for information. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Madam Deputy Mayor, you wish to speak to the École Secondaire Le Caron funding request?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Vadaboncourt. I do believe that Le Caron they're very into our community, very much supporting different things within the community, and I would like to see us, I'm looking at the letter that was composed. I don't see an actual amount that was asked for. I don't know. I wonder if, Mr. CAO, could you elaborate? I see you picking up the microphone.
Through you, Mr. Chair, through to Deputy Mayor Dubois, the request that has come in from Le Caron does not identify an amount. It talks about a school trip that they're taking as a group of 18 students out west. They do talk about that they are looking to find organizations in the community that would be willing to support their dream by making a donation. And any contribution or donation would be used to offset costs such as room rentals, flights, registration fees, bus fees, etc. So they haven't identified an amount. I suspect or suppose via the letter they're looking for a donation of any sort, and really would be up to committee to kind of propose an amount. The treasurer and I did have a little bit of conversation about this in terms of funding mechanisms and whatnot, but I'll hold that thought. If that's the direction committee is going, we're happy to speak to how we might fund something like this.
Any thoughts from members of council? I see Councillor Levy's hand go up, and I think Councillor Sandoval wants to say a few words. So, Councillor Levy, please.
Thank you very much. For starters, I would propose I would throw out a sum of $500, which shouldn't really impact our budget too greatly. I'm sure we can find somewhere to take $500 for. I don't believe it should be a huge donation because it's not a school-wide thing, but I think we should show our support for these students in our only high school in Penetanguishene.
Thank you, Councillor Sandoval, and then Mayor LaRue, we'll get to you in a minute. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a question for clarification. I agree. I'd like to see us to support it, but do we have a policy of any sort that deals with these sorts of requests, like through that community fund or whatever? Maybe through to Carrie?
Through you to Councillor Sanama, the town does have a Huronia Communities Foundation. Typically, it has been focused on a youth fund. So certainly, we do have revenues generated, interest generated from that fund that we could, and the CAO and I spoke about it, we could utilize that to certainly fund $500. So it wouldn't impact the budget at all.
Thank you. Mayor LaRue, you had some comments, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually would support Councillor Levy in this. Le Caron,
Yeah, he supports.
It's very, very garbled. Did anybody hear? Yeah, I think he was. Okay.
He was
He's supporting it. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'll try again, and maybe I'll speak a little slower, but I do support Councillor Levy's motion.
Okay.
He agrees.
Should I put that by way of motion?
Yes. Oh.
So I would certainly support.
I would move that we give a donation of $500 to assist the Le Caron band trip to BC.
Thank you, Councillor Levy, and I believe I heard the mayor second that motion. So any further discussion on that motion? Madam Clerk?
I do have the $500 amount. Just for clarification, I think we should add to the motion where the amount would come from, it's the Huronia Communities Foundation?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, for that clarification. So having heard the motion and the mover and seconder, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on then to the matters under consideration, and Your Worship, you're next on the agenda to provide a verbal update on the regional/county government review. Mayor LaRue?
Thank you. I think maybe we're having some difficulty hearing it at times. The CAO actually attended that meeting with me, and I would probably ask that it would be better if he were to give that review, that overview. The CAO, if you would, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll try to give kind of the Coles Notes version of what took place. So as committee will recall, on Tuesday, February 19th, the heads of council were all requested individually to meet with one of the two advisors that the province has engaged in the regional government review. The heads of council could bring one member of staff with them, and in our case, I did attend with Mayor LaRue. We met with Ken Sealing, one of the two advisors who is a previous chair of Waterloo Region. It was a 30-minute meeting. Mr. Sealing did highlight kind of the process that they're undertaking and outlined 3 phases of the project. Phase 1 being the meetings or consultation with the heads of council. Phase 2 being sometime in early March, where there will be opportunity for the public through some sort of a survey or portal to provide input and feedback. And Phase 3, of which they weren't entirely sure how or if that would roll out, but a mechanism to engage community groups of interest. There was a number of things talked about, and although there were 3 questions which members of committee were all aware of that the meetings were kind of honing in on, it kind of rolled, and it wasn't terribly formal. It was kind of informal, and there were kind of questions on the fly. Before I kind of highlight those 3 areas, what I neglected to mention is, from a timing perspective, the 2 advisors are to have their final report, which is confidential in nature, submitted to Cabinet by the end of June, with Cabinet debating and deciding and determining how they're going to roll out and what they're going to roll out come August, with an expected or anticipated release sometime mid to late August, which probably aligns very nicely with the AMO conference. And then further to that, they will push their recommendations and any potential changes through the legislative process in the fall. So that's kind of the process. It is a confidential report being submitted to Cabinet, so not available to the public, but certainly when the government is ready to roll out whatever it is they wish to roll out, that will obviously become public knowledge come mid to late August. In terms of the 3 areas, so the first question talked about decision-making from a governance perspective. We did talk to Mr. Sealing about, basically what we know today. We don't see that there's a significant need to move to a single-tier municipality or consider large-scale amalgamation. It was certainly, we did identify that municipalities should be given the autonomy where there are opportunities to self-identify solutions and implement such solutions, and we certainly honed in on a number of the initiatives that we as a municipality currently engage with our friends over in Midland, as well as our friends over at Georgian Bay Township. We did identify that we believe the 2 separated cities within Simcoe County should be a part of the process, of which I believe there was some confirmation that they will be considered throughout the review. And in general, we talked about the size of councils, be it lower tier or be it upper tier, that the government should really consider appropriate representation from a population perspective for size of councils. Again, be it lower tier or be it upper tier. The next question talked about improving the quality of service and or reducing cost overlap with the lower tier and the upper tier municipality. We did talk about, although we feel there's great collaboration with our friends at the County of Simcoe, we do think that there are further opportunities for discussion, some of which were in the servicing areas, so water, wastewater, stormwater. We talked about some of our soft services, that fall under library services, emergency services, as well as a number of the back-end administration pieces, IT, procurement, risk management, legal, etc. We also, again, honed in on, although it's not predominantly about cost savings, and sometimes it's about better allocation of resources and more effective means of delivering services, we again honed in on the services that we currently share with our friends and our neighbors, as well as that we did conduct a service delivery review in 2017 that we feel provides a number of opportunities that we could better position ourselves as a municipality. We talked about the fact that we believe any and all special purpose bodies, be it Police Services Board, library boards, health units, conservation authorities, the education sector, et cetera, should be engaged, should be considered as part of this review and not left off the table, essentially. And then the last area talked about how, you know, the pace of evolution from region to region does differ and is influenced by a variety of factors and innovations, and kind of where do we see ourselves as well as our opportunity being positioned in 10 years. We talked about, you know, the fact that, you know, we don't see there being significant challenges from a service delivery perspective at an upper tier, but there should be consideration given to looking at the size of the county, because it is a large county with 16 lower tier municipalities. From a lower tier perspective, we talked about, you know, we are experiencing significant growth in Penetanguishene. We talked about relinquishing and utilizing our rich Francophone and Aboriginal history. We talked about, you know, we do have a high proportion of Francophone as well as Aboriginal population in Simcoe County, as well as, you know, almost everything we do, we don't lose sight of that. So be it events, be it our advisory committees, be it the way we provide our projects, be it our consultation from a capital project perspective. So it's really a wide spectrum. And I think in closing, we felt that as a municipality, we are sustainable from a lower tier perspective moving forward, and that we want to continue to ensure that the service delivery model at the town of Penetanguishene is effective, efficient, and economical from a delivery perspective. So I realize that was a longer summary than perhaps I had anticipated, but Mayor Leroux, hopefully I didn't miss anything. You're certainly welcome to add on, or if you wish, clarify some of the pieces I talked about.
We did make the fact that the second oldest town in Canada has a lot of history and heritage, and we did touch on the fact that we have both the largest population of French and the largest population of Indigenous in Penetanguishene, and that there are only one of two bilingual communities in the county, and that being Penetanguishene and Carter Township. So I think we're going to have to touch on everything else.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you, Mayor Leroux. I think I picked up on what you were saying, and although I didn't get into a lot of depth, I think what you were referring to was our Francophone population and Aboriginal population, and be it that it is, we do have probably the highest proportion of those two areas in the county of Simcoe. So with that, Mr. Chair, that's my summary. I'd be happy to field any questions or comments from members of committee.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Are there any questions of the CAO on a summary of the meeting that took place on February 19th? No questions? Okay, thank you. So, Madam Clerk, there is not a motion required for this. It was just a verbal update. Okay. Thank you. Moving on then to the next item on the agenda is the report on the 2018 capital carry forward request and the 2018 draft capital taxation surplus. So the report's in your agenda. It talks about the capital projects that were not completed in 2018 and are projects are ongoing and they're required to be carried forward into 2019, and some projects that didn't start in 2018 but have been included in the 2019 budget and will be completed in 2019. This is a standard report that's brought forward this time of the year for Council's consideration. It basically formalizes the transfer of the funds that were not expended into various reserves, and then they come out as part of the budget. Madam Treasurer, is there anything that you wanted to highlight in your report?
No, unless there's specific questions. I would certainly, or any of the senior managers can answer any questions related to any of the projects identified in the report.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Are there any questions of any members of council? I just had one question, and that has to do with the status of the Main Street project. I see it's part of a carry forward. Are we at substantial completion in that project? Where are we at with respect to that? What's left in that on that project? Thank you.
Thank you. Through to Councillor Vadabancourt. We did achieve substantial completion of the project in December of 2018, and the remainder of the project is the remaining works that were completed at the end of the construction season last year, which are very few, and we're now in the warranty period of the project. So there's a 12-month warranty period associated with the contract. So within the next 12 months, we reinspect our main street for any deficiencies, and over that period, our consultant with town staff ensures with the contractor that those get resolved, so that that budget remaining is associated with that.
Thank you. Any other questions on any of the projects listed? Okay, may I have a mover then for the 2018 capital carry forward request and the 2018 draft capital taxation surplus? Thank you, Councillor Rose. Seconder, Councillor Sanama. Any further questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Moving on to the next item is correspondence from the Ministry of Finance dealing with the provincial review of the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, or UMF. There's a lengthy motion there. It describes the potential impacts of the elimination of this fund on the town of Penetanguishene. I don't know if the Treasurer or the CAO wishes to speak to it, but you can see that depending on what the province decides to do, the impact could be substantial if this fund is eliminated or substantially reduced. I'll turn it over to Mr. CAO or Madam Treasurer. Are there any further comments? Or okay, thank you, Mr. CAO.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll be very brief. There is a letter attached to this item from the Ministry of Finance. There was a lot of speculation that there would be significant reductions in the 2019 funding envelope. As you'll see by the letter we received in the middle of February, they are remaining status quo with a commitment to review it. So really what we're looking for here is to support our friends at many other municipalities that have passed a similar motion, and in this particular case, the Township of South Stormont passed a motion. So really looking to support that, pass it along to our friends in the County of Simcoe, as well as the province and our MP and MPPs.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Any further comments or questions on this? So there is a lengthy motion. I won't read the whole motion, but I'll just read the last three paragraphs. Now therefore be it resolved that although an interim payment has been received, Council of the Town of Penetanguishene expresses grave concern with the potential reduction and or loss of the UMF allocation in future years. And further, Council petitions the provincial government to complete the UMF review in an expeditious manner as future financial consideration ensures municipal sustainability. And furthermore, that this resolution be circulated to our Premier, Ministers of Finance, Municipal Affairs and Housing, our local MPP, and all Simcoe County municipalities for their endorsement and support. So any further comments on that? So we have a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So moved and seconded by Councillor Mayotte. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. The next item on the agenda is the Community Wellbeing Committee and Advisory Committee updates. And there's a recommendation in your agenda that the Seniors Advisory Committee, Youth Council, and Accessibility Advisory Committee be dissolved and emerge into the membership of a Community Wellbeing Committee, and that the following changes be made to the town's advisory committees of council. Reduce all advisory committee meetings to quarterly or at the call of the chair. Require annual work plans for all advisory committees that are approved by council. Update the terms of reference for each committee and Schedule D of the procedural bylaw. And finally, that an amendment to the procedural bylaw be brought forward to council for approval. This was subject to a presentation at one of our past Committee of the Whole meetings. There were some changes made as a result of some of the comments that were received. Madam Clerk, did you want to address any highlights from your report?
I just wanted to actually briefly mention, since this report was submitted for this council agenda, our Director of Recreation and I sat in on a ministry conference call, I guess it was. It was sort of a webinar conference call about the age-friendly development, and they expressed to us, the ministry's focus on combining accessibility with seniors. In fact, I think that's the name of one of the ministries, was Seniors and Accessibility Together. So literally, as we were sitting through that, the way they were talking, we realized how ahead of the curve we were in terms of proposing this joint committee, because they basically said these two need to come together. Age-friendly isn't just about accessibility, it's about seniors. And then the most interesting part to us, and the part that we were the most proud of, was that they said, now we just need to get the youth involved. Now we just need to figure out a way to have the youth at the table so that they can understand how accessibility and seniors and what we need to do in our community to make it the best that it can be. And her and I were very happy to hear that. And I think there's a lot of documentation from the age-friendly plan from the ministry that will actually be almost a guiding document, I think, for this committee, if council, of course, approves it. I think it could be a huge help, and it essentially kind of lays out the framework for this committee.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions? Thank you. Councillor Levy?
Thank you very much. I went on at great length about my opposition to the Accessibility Committee being rolled in with any others. I won't go on at great length today, but I'm just pointing out that there's a very distinct mandate from the province, and it was a very well-functioning committee that worked well with staff, and I'm sorry to see this move being made. That's all I will say tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Levy. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, may I have a mover for the motion? Councillor Mayotte, seconder. Councillor Clue, any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is sorry, I forgot his worship. Mayor LaRue, did you have any comments on last report? Thank you, Your Worship. So the next item on the agenda is the record retention review, and this is more or less a housekeeping matter. Madam Clerk, was there anything that you wanted to highlight in this report?
I don't believe so. No, it's just standard records management, pretty self-explanatory.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions on this matter? So the recommendation is that the town's records retention bylaw and schedule be amended to reflect the updated legislative requirements and departmental updates, and that staff bring forward the necessary bylaw for council approval. Any further comments or discussion? May I have a mover for this one? Councillor Rose, seconder, Councillor Sandoval. Any further comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion's carried. And we have some referrals to upcoming agendas. There's a whole list of them there. Huronia Airport Commission, Joint Business Operation Review, Election 2018. This one can come off because I think it was dealt with earlier tonight, so that one has been dealt with. Joint Insurance Renewal Strategy, Community Contributions Policy Review, Council Conference Policy, Council Remuneration, and Corporate Contingency Report. Any questions on any of those items? Madam Deputy Mayor?
I would like this added to the referrals list. Back in January, we received a presentation from Fred Hacker speaking to the establishment of a North Simcoe Cultural Committee. They were asking for funding of $10,000 for all the local North Simcoe communities along with Beausoleil First Nations. So I would like to send this and have a staff report brought forward. And Madam Clerk has got her hand up.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Madam Clerk?
Yes, Deputy Mayor actually mentioned to me that she wanted to bring this forward, and I realized I think I gave her some poor advice because I think this actually should have probably been brought forward under recreation because it is a recreation ask, recognizing there is a financial impact. Really, it is the recreation department that needs to sort of speak to whether or not this is something that they could work with. So I think if committee today determines, based on this vote, that they're comfortable adding it as a referral item, I'll just administratively add it to the recreation list if that's agreeable.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, I would hope that council would agree.
Thank you, Madam Clerk and Madam Deputy Mayor. So what we're hearing is that if councils are in agreement with this matter being added to the referral list, that it will in fact be added to the recreation and culture referral list.
Yes.
Okay, so Madam Clerk?
And just for clarification, we would just want to make sure we have the key deliverables. I think staff are clear, but just for the agenda, the key deliverable would be options for funding and use of funding, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I just want to make sure that the Recreation Department, Director of Recreation has the proper direction in terms of preparing her report.
Options for funding and also a member of our council to attend the meetings.
So an appointment of
An appointment,
okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we need a motion to add this to the referral list, or how is that done?
If the motion is passed here for these finance and corporate services motions, I will actually, as I mentioned, I'll add this item specifically to the recreation version if committee is okay with that.
Thank you. So the motion is that Finance and Corporate Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff as outlined. We have a mover, Councillor Cummings, a seconder. Councillor Sanama, all those in favor? Carried. And yes, Your Worship, did you have any comments on that referral matter? Okay, thank you. Any questions from the media and the public? Seeing none, Your Worship, I'll turn the meeting back to you.
Thank you, Councillor Vancouver. And if there are no further items before us this evening, I will call for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Cummings and seconded by Councillor Sanama. All those in favor? Carried. And I may mention that there is a hockey game going on, so I'm very glad that I'll get to see a period or two. Thank you.